नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा संबुद्धस्सा। नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा संबुद्धस्सा। नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा संबुद्धस्सा। इतिपिसो भगवारहं सम्मा संबुद्धो विद्याचरण संपन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरिसदम्म सारथि सत्ता देव मनुष्याणां बुद्धो भगवाति। नमो तस्स सम्मा संबुद्धस्स। स्वाख्यातो भगवता धम्मो संदिटिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको अपनायको पच्छत्तं वेदितव्यो विन्नुहीति। नमो तस्स नियानिकस्स धम्मस्स। सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरिसयुगानि अट्टपुरिसपुग्गल एषा भगवतो सावक संगो आहुनेयो पाहुनेयो दक्किनेयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यकेतं लोकस्साति। नमो तस्स अट्ट आर्य पुग्गला महासंगसा विपत्ति पटिवाहाय सब्ब संपत्ति सिद्धिया सब्ब दुःखं विनाशाय सब्ब भयं विनाशाय सब्ब रोगं विनाशाय भवेदीगायुकदायक सब्ब लोकं हितत्ताय परित्तं तं बनामहे समन्ता चक्रवालेषु अत्र गच्छन्तु देवता सद्धम्मं मुनिराजस्सा सुनन्तु सग्गमोक्तदम् धम्म सवन कालो अयं बदंत धम्म सवन कालो अयं बदंत परित्त सवन कालो अयं बदंत। नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा संबुद्धस्सा। महाकारुणिको नातो हिताय सब्ब पाणिनं पूरयित्वा पारमी सब्बं तत्तो संबोधिमुत्तमं एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। जयन्तो बोधिया मूले सख्यानं नन्दिवदनो एवं मयं जयो होतु जयस्सु जयमङ्गलं। सक्कत्वा बुद्धरतनं ओषधं उत्तमं वरं हितं देवमनुस्सानां बुद्धतेजेन सोत्तिना न सन्तु पद्दवा सब्बे दुःखा उपासमेन्तु मे सक्कत्वा धम्मरतनं ओषधं उत्तमं वरं परिलाहुपशमानां धम्मतेजेन सोत्तिना न सन्तु पद्दवा सब्बे भयावुपासमेन्तु मे सक्कत्वा संगरतनं ओषधं उत्तमं वरं आहुनेयं पाहुनेयं संगतेजेन सोत्तिना न सन्तु पद्दवा सब्बे रोगा उपासमेन्तु मे यंकिंचिरतनं लोके विद्यति विविधा पुतु रतनं बुद्ध समं नत्ति तस्मा सोत्ति भवन्तु मे यंकिंचिरतनं लोके विद्यति विविधा पुतु रतनं धम्म समं नत्ति तस्मा सोत्ति भवन्तु मे यंकिंचिरतनं लोके विद्यति विविधा पुतु रतनं संग समं नत्ति तस्मा सोत्ति भवन्तु मे नत्ति मे शरणं अन्यं बुद्धो मे शरणं वरं एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। नत्ति मे शरणं अन्यं धम्मो मे शरणं वरं एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। नत्ति मे शरणं अन्यं संगो मे शरणं वरं एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। सब्बित्यो विभज्यन्तु सब्बरोगो विनश्यतु मामे भवतन्तरायो सुखी दीर्घायुको भव भवतु सब्बमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सब्बदेवता सब बुद्धानुभावेन सब धम्मानुभावेन सब संघानुभावेन सदा सोत्ति भवन्तु ते न कथयक भूतानां पापग्रह निवारण परित्तस्सानुभावेन हन्तु नो उपद्रवे देवो वसातु कालेन सस्य संपत्ति हेतु च पीतो भवतु लोको च राजा भवतु धम्मिको यं दुर्निमित्तं अवमङ्गलं चायो चामनापो सकुणस्य सद्दो पापगहो दुःसुपिनं अकन्तं बुद्धानुभावे न विनाशमेन्तु धम्मानुभावे न विनाशमेन्तु संगानुभावे न विनाशमेन्तु आकाशता च बुम्मट्टा देवनागा महिद्दिका पुण्यन्तं अनुमोदित्वा चिरं रक्षन्तु शासनं चिरं रक्षन्तु देशनं चिरं रक्षन्तु मम परं एतावता च अम्मेहि संबतं पुण्यसम्पदं सब्बे देवा अनुमोदन्तु सब्बे भूता अनुमोदन्तु सब्बे सत्ता अनुमोदन्तु सब्ब संपत्ति सिद्धिया nibbana sampatti siddhiya idam no nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idam no nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idam no nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo Sabbe Buddha Balapata Pache Kanan Chayang Balang Arhantanan Chate Jena Rakkang Bandami Sabbaso Sabbe Dhamma Balapata Arya Satchanan Chayang Balang Dhamma Chakka Sate Jena Rakkang Bandami Sabbaso Sabbe Sangha Balapata Vimuttanan Chayang Balang Sasana Sate Jena Rakkang Bandami Sabbaso Imina Punya Kamena Mame Bala Samagamo Satang Samagamo Hotu Yava Nibbana Pattiya Idang me Punya Kamang Asavakayang Vahang Hotu Sabba Dukkha Pamucchatu Nibbana Sampachayo Hotu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So today we will take up one sutta. It's called Kutadanta Sutta. Kutadanta is the name of a person. A sutta that is given to this Kutadanta. That's why it's named as Kutadanta Sutta. The discourse given to Kutadanta. Something like our previous discourse, this Kalama Sutta, where the people were confused about what is right, what is wrong, what to be followed, what not to be followed, what is the right view, what is the wrong view. Here also there is some challenge in understanding what to do, whether it is according to right view, whether this action is according to right view, or whether it is according to wrong view. That clarity people have lost during the time when Buddha gave this discourse. And again, Buddha has to clarify what action is according to the right view. In that way, each and every discourse of Buddha, it will give us some idea, some clarification about our core aspect that we are discussing. And of course, our organization also named based on what is called right view. So right view is actually is the factor, is the knowledge that decides what is right thought, what is wrong thought, what is right action, what is wrong action, what is right speech, what is wrong speech, what is right meditation, what is wrong meditation. So this clarity of right and wrong, you will get in every aspect, in all aspects of life. If you thoroughly start exploring, start discovering the different facets, the different dimensions of right view. I'm very much fascinated by this discovery or this exploration of right view. That's what is all about our mission. That's what is actually Buddha's mission also. In all the times, people somehow they pull towards the wrong views. They always get attracted to the extreme views, the extreme wrong views. They fall into the trap of wrong views. Either too materialistic or body-centered views, they fall into the trap. The sensual things, they fall into the trap of sensual pleasures, and they highlight, they start glorifying the physical senses and sensual pleasures, or they fall into the trap of say some imaginary idea, some external protection, some unnecessary surrendering for the wrong things. So that kind of extreme views somehow people get trapped into. So the Buddhas will arise. Buddhas had arisen, Buddhas will arise to help people to escape from these extremes of wrong views. So in all discourses, I can see, as far as my understanding, I have gone through so many discourses several times. All the scriptures, maybe several times. Some discourses several times, some scriptures several times. I could see the essence of Buddha's mission, or Buddha's discourses, or Buddha's knowledge is this right view only. So if you thoroughly understand and start exploring yourself from within, the different dimensions, the different aspects, the different facets of right view, then definitely 100%, 1000%, you'll start working in the path of peace, happiness, right health, success in all aspects of life. You will become happy and successful. In this introduction, so the sutta that we chanted now, it is Maha Jaya Mangala Gatha. Of course, it is very simple. It is again to worship the qualities of Buddha. He fulfilled all the parmis, 10 perfections in his previous lives, millions of previous lives, to perfect his mind, to cultivate this right view to its maximum, to its peak. He could cultivate the right view by practicing the different perfections like dana, shila, apachayana, all these, say, kanti, patience, this panya, wisdom. He perfected these parmis for so many lives. So we are showing our reverence, our gratitude for his effort, for his conviction in developing the right view by perfecting these parmis. And again, we salute, we worship Buddha for achieving his supreme enlightenment by sitting under the Bodhi tree and becoming Buddha. For that virtue, for that say success of Buddha also, we are appreciating, we are worshipping. And then it's like Osada, it's like a powerful medicine. Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, all these right view aspects are like powerful medicine. You don't get such a powerful medicine as powerful as your right view. And that right view perception you will get in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So that's how it's considered as Osada, like medicine. So this kind of medicine we have given. In that way also we are worshipping Buddha. And then Nati me saranam. I don't take refuge in any other thing. It is not one fanatical way. I hate this, I hate that, I don't like this. No, that is not the way to appreciate Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. I take refuge only in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, because this is absolutely right. I don't require any other views. It will again take me to wrong views. That compassion to other wrong views. You are, and with clarity that this is the right view, you are saying that Nati me saranam. I don't take refuge in any other thing. I take refuge only in this right view. So that is what is highlighted in this discourse, Maha Jaya Mangala Gatha. Now, of course, this will increase our right faith in this right view. One should have right faith also in right view. Then only you start liking, appreciating, learning right view. Right view will help me to keep away the wrong views, which is the say it's the right path, the right approach to get the happiness, health, and peace of mind, and also success, and to lead a most satisfying life. So that idea, if you have, you develop right faith towards this right view. So with that introduction, now we will take up this Kutadanta Sutta, the discourse given to Kutadanta. And it's a very long discourse, but still I want to go through this discourse because there are some background references, background stories. And again, there is a story inside a story. In that way, like the previous Buddha's life story, some Jataka aspect is also there. So though it is little long, I want to go through this because it will give us a lot of ideas about that culture, the human psychology during Buddha's time, and the different cultural aspects, different belief systems the people had during Buddha's time. And it's quite interesting and fascinating also. So if we go through this sutta, and if it is too long, if we can't complete today, then we can continue this sutra the next week also. So now we will take up this Kutadanta. So some disturbance, some noise is there because some work is going on. Just bear with this sound. Focus on the contents. I think then you will not be disturbed by the sound if you have interest in this, then you will not be disturbed by the sound. So what happened? So I have heard at one time the Buddha was wandering in the land of the Magadhans together with a large Sangha of around 500 disciples. When he arrived at a village of the Magadhan Brahmins named Kanumata, there he stayed nearby at Ambalatika. Ambalatika is one small, say guru or some small hamlet kind of thing. So, or a guru kind of thing, just near to this Kanumata. So we're there. So it was in the village of Magadhan province. At that time, Brahmin Kutadanta was living in Kanumata. He was a very renowned person, this Kutadanta. He was very wise person, very virtuous person, very old person. And he was the head of that village. And he was living in that Kanumata, that village. And he was planning for some program. And because this discourse is titled in his name, Kutadanta, so they are giving some introduction about this Kutadanta. It was a crown property given by King Seniya Bimbisara of Magadha, teeming with living creatures, full of hay, wood, water, and grain, a royal endowment of the highest quality. It was given by the king to these people, whose head is this Kutadanta. So it was full of lot of prosperity, all kinds of prosperity, water, food, wood, grain, and all kinds of prosperity, luxuries they were enjoying. Now at that time, Kutadanta had prepared a great sacrifice. Bulls, bullocks, heifers, goats, and rams, 700 of each, had been led to the post for the sacrifice. So why I have chosen this discourse is again to come out of some wrong views related to this kind of animal sacrifice. People, to please some deities, to please some divine beings, by killing the animals, they can be pleased. That kind of version is there. So the extreme version of this, killing people also, killing the non-believers, killing the people also will please the gods. That kind of absolutely extreme and nonsense views also people have. So we can relate how horrible views they have, how ignorant views it is, neither people or the animals which are going to be died in this sacrifice, and also the people involved in this sacrifice, how dangerous it is. That is also explained in this. That kind of wrong view is absolutely dangerous. How to come out of this wrong view, that is also explained in this discourse. So I thought of choosing this discourse. And here also in Nepal, I heard once in 5 years, they kill thousands of lakhs of animals in the name of sacrifice. Of course, at this juncture, it is very difficult to teach them. They are completely obsessed with this wrong view. But let us see whether this kind of mentality it will change here also. And here, in this case, in this Kutadanta's case, though he was a very wise man, because of the influence of wrong views, they become stupid. They completely lose their, say, discretionary power, what to do and what not to do. And he was planning for one great sacrifice, great animal sacrifice, where thousands, hundreds of, 700s of each, bulls, bullocks, heifers, goats, and rams, he wanted to sacrifice. Something like this, Nepal sacrificial ceremony. They were also organizing that sacrificial ceremony. And the householders and the Brahmins of Kanumataka heard this, and they started discussing. It seems ascetic Gautama, a Sakyan, gone forth from a Sakyan family, has arrived at Kanumataka and is staying in a forest nearby. He has this good reputation. The Blessed One is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to try, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. This Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vidyacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavido Anuttar Purusada Matare Sarati. These 9 qualities that we remember, the same things they remembered, the people of that Kanumataka village, and they started developing some interest to meet Lord Buddha. He has realized with his own insight this world with its gods, Maras and Brahmas, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, gods and humans, and he makes it known to the others. He teaches Dhamma that's good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, meaningful and well phrased. He knows everything about the world. He discovered all the subtleties, all the rules, all the laws of this existence, and he can teach everyone, the gods, Maras, Brahmas, humans, ascetics, Brahmins, everyone he can teach. And he makes known it. He is teaching everyone, and he is giving this knowledge of this Buddhatva to everyone. He teaches Dhamma that's good in the beginning. So whatever he teaches, it is good in the beginning, it is good in the middle, it is good in the end. Such a great master. And meaningful and well phrased, and he is very good in teaching also. Not only the contents that he teaches, even the way he teaches is also very, very impressive. And he reveals a spiritual practice that's entirely full and pure. So he gives us a wonderful path. He reveals a spiritual practice which is absolutely pure, which is absolutely perfect and full. It's good to see such perfected ones. So it is better to see this kind of perfected, enlightened Lord Buddha. In that way, they were discussing. Then, having departed Kanumataka, they formed into companies and headed to Ambalitika. Just it was nearby, next to this Kanumataka, that Ambalitika grove was there. So they started moving to that Ambalitika to meet Lord Buddha in small groups, in different groups, into companies. They formed themselves into companies, and they started moving towards Ambalitika to meet Buddha. Now at that time, the Brahmin Kutadanta had retired to the upper floor of his still long house for his midday nap. After his midday meal, he used to take a midday nap, and he was in the upper floor of his palace. He saw the Brahmins and householders heading for Ambalitika and addressed his steward, "My steward, why are the Brahmins and householders headed for Ambalitika?" So after his midday meal and midday nap, he saw many groups of people. They were heading towards this Ambalitika, and he asked his say personal advisor or his personal secretary, so where these people are moving. So in that way, he asked this his steward, his PA. Then the ascetic Gautama, he replied, that his steward, his assistant replied, "The ascetic Gautama has arrived at Kanumataka and is staying at Ambalitika. He has this good reputation. The blessed one is perfected, and all these 9 qualities he explains. And he is very good in teaching, and he has understood the subtleties of this entire existence. He is such a renowned and a supremely enlightened one. To meet him, all these people are going." In that way, he answered to the question of his master, this Kutadanta. Then Kutadanta thought, "I have heard that the ascetic Gautama knows how to accomplish the sacrifice with 3 modes and 16 accessories. I don't know about that, but I wish to perform a great sacrifice. Why don't I ask him how to accomplish the sacrifice with 3 modes and 16 accessories?" Now, anyways, I am planning to have a great animal sacrifice for the welfare of all beings. That was his notion. That was his view. But I don't know the 3 modes and 16 accessories. Accessories means like supporting factors that are required to perform this animal sacrifice. To perform this animal sacrifice, there are 3 modes that I should learn correctly from this Master Gautama, that is Buddha. And also, I should learn the 16 accessories, supporting factors that I should create to make this ceremony a grand and successful ceremony, this animal sacrifice. So better I go and discuss with Buddha, because he is all-knowing one, he knows everything. So better I go and discuss with him to learn these 3 modes of performing this animal sacrifice, and also 16 accessory factors, the accessory steps. That also let me learn from Buddha. Then I can perform this animal sacrifice in a far, far superior way. So with that idea, what he decided, then Kutadanta addressed his steward, "Well, then go to the Brahmins and householders and say to them, 'Sirs, the Brahmin Kutadanta asks you to wait, as he will also go to see the ascetic Gotama. So then he requested his steward, please go and ask them to wait for some time so that I can also join them and I can pose my question to Buddha and get the reply. And then it will be useful. It will be, say, it is required for performing our animal sacrifice in a better way. So in that way, he requested his steward. His steward, he agreed to his master's request, and he told the different groups of the householders who are moving towards this Ambalitika to meet Buddha, just to wait for some time, so that his master also can accompany them. Then coming to this Kutadanta, his qualities also are explained here. Now at that time, several hundred Brahmins were residing in Kanumata, thinking to participate in Kutadanta's sacrifice. So many people were invited from all over the Magadhan province and also maybe from other provinces also to participate in this animal sacrifice. They were all having a lot of respect to this Kutadanta because he was having some great qualities. So they heard that Kutadanta was going to see the ascetic Gotama. They approached Kutadanta and said to him, there were also, let's say, many say scholars from different provinces, from different places. And they knew that this Kutadanta was also full of great qualities. And when they heard that this Kutadanta is going to meet Buddha, they felt a little bad. They were upset, a bit upset. And they came to Kutadanta and they started conversation with Kutadanta. Is it really true that you are going to see ascetic Gotama? Yes, gentlemen, it is true. Please don't do that. So we heard that you are going to meet ascetic Gotama. So he said, yes, then don't do that. In that way, they advised this Kutadanta. It is not appropriate for you to go to see the ascetic Gotama. For if you do so, your reputation will diminish and his will increase. We have a lot of respect for you. Because of respect in you, we have come all the way from our far-off places to participate in your ceremony, in your animal sacrifice. So if you go and meet him, then your reputation will diminish and his reputation will increase. So you don't go. For this reason, it is not appropriate for you to go to see the ascetic Gotama. It is appropriate that he should come and meet you. In that way, they started some kind of, it's like some kind of their superiority complex. They want, or it may be their wrong view again. They thought that he is, after all, he is a wanderer, he is an ascetic, he is going here and there to collect alms. But you have so many qualities, virtues. You are superior in that way. They had that say request with this Kutadanta not to go and see Buddha. Let Buddha come and meet you. In that way, they requested. And why you are superior? In that way, they started substantiating, they started defending how this Kutadanta is superior. There are 8 qualities that they started prizing or they have identified with this Kutadanta. You are well born on both your mother's and father's side, of pure descent, irrefutable and impeccable in questions of ancestry back to the 7th paternal generation. So from your mother's side and father's side, you have very good lineage, you have very pure descent. That is one thing. For this reason, it's not appropriate for you to go to Buddha and see him. Rather, he should come and meet you. In that way, they started identifying that he is pure descent from his mother's side and father's side. Then the second aspect, they started say prizing about this Kutadanta is you are rich, affluent and wealthy with lots of property and assets and lots of money and grain. Again, you see so many kinds of wrong view. This kind of wrong views, the pure descent, they think that is superiority. So you see the wrong view here. And having a lot of riches and wealth and grain and property, that is superiority. Again, that kind of wrong view. With that wrong view, they think that he is superior. Here, the knowledge, wisdom, enlightenment, purity, that doesn't matter for the lay people, for the common people. Of course, all the time, today also, so many people, they think that pure descent or your riches or your property, that is superiority. That's what many people think. The same In the same way, that time also, the people were thinking those are the superior qualities. And the third superior quality that they discussed, that they prized with regard to Kutadanta, is you recite and remember the hymns, have mastered the three Vedas together with their vocabularies, ritual, phonology, etymology, and the testament as fifth. You know philology and grammar, and are well versed in cosmology and marks of a great man. If you know all these scholarly things about the different secular, or it's more like secular, though it was considered spiritual, knowing Vedas, knowing etymology, knowing the testament, knowing grammar, knowing philology, all these different aspects of the secular knowledge, you know, you are well versed in all these things. You have the marks of a great man, Mahapurisa Lakhana also, the great 32 qualities, so many qualities, even this Kutadanta had among the 32. So in that way, you are a special man, you are superior. So this is the third quality that we want to highlight, that how you are superior than Master Gautama. Then again they said, you are attractive, good looking, lovely, of surpassing beauty. You are magnificent, splendid, remarkable to behold, to see. You are so attractive, so charming. So that is one more people, even today, they consider it as a superior quality. When something very physical attraction is there, debonair is there, then they think he's a superior person. The same notion they had during that time also. So they started prizing this Kutadanta by highlighting his appearance. Then they say, you are ethical, mature in ethical conduct. Of course, they have different versions of ethics, morality. So he was practicing according to his view, his moral precepts, and they started prizing his ethical maturity, his ethical conduct. So you are superior in ethical maturity also. So in that way, you are superior to Master Gautama. Then you are a good speaker with a polished, clear, and articulate voice that expresses the meaning. So you are a very good speaker also. You are good in delivering whatever you know in the most superior way, so that everybody will be convinced with your speech. And your voice is also very polished and very articulate voice you have, with a lot of meaning in whatever you speak. In that way also you are superior to Master Gautama. You teach the teachers of many and teach 300 students to recite the hymns. Many students come from various districts and countries for the sake of the hymns, wishing to learn the hymns. And you are a great master also, great teacher. You teach the teachers, you teach hundreds of students who come to your place from different countries, different districts. And in that way also you are a superior person. You are old, elderly, and senior, advanced in years, and have reached the final stage of life. The Astic Gautama is young and has newly gone forth. And again, this age also will come into a picture to decide who is superior, who is. That is very much there in almost all phases of mankind, different eras of mankind. Everybody, in all societies, in all civilizations, people have a lot of reverence for age also. They think that those who are aged, those who are so old, people consider them as wise generally, but it may not be true. So in that aspect also, you are quite aged, you are elderly. Master Gautama is very young. Recently he has gone forth. How can you go and meet him? Such a young fellow, how can you go and meet him? He should come and meet you. The youngsters should come and meet the elders. Why the elderly person like you should go and meet Master Gautama? So that is their logic, that is their understanding, that is their view. Old age only makes a person wise. No, that is again a wrong view, that we will see how it is a wrong view. Then again, one more aspect they attribute to this Kutadanta, how he is superior than Buddha. You are honored, respected, revered, venerated, and esteemed by King Bimbisara of Magadha, and so many other great wise people like Pokhara Sati. There were so many wise people, Brahmin Pokhara Sati, and there were so many say scholars and kings. They respect you. And if you are getting a lot of respect from these great people, why should you go and meet Buddha? Rather, he should come and meet you. So these are the different things they tried to explain to this Kutadanta and to say ask him not to go and meet Buddha. Rather, let him come and meet you. You live in Kanumata, a crown property given by King Senia Bimbisara of Magadha, teeming with living creatures, full of hay, wood, water, and grain, a royal endowment of the highest quality. For this reason, it is not appropriate for you to go to see the ascetic Gautama. It is appropriate that he comes to see you. Because of all these great virtues, you have got so much respect from everyone, so much property, so much possessions, so much gifts from everyone, because of all your great virtues and qualities. So you don't go, let him come and meet you. In that way, with their wrong view, they started showing superiority of this Kutadanta over Master Gautama, over Buddha. Then this Kutadanta is a wise man with this regard, and he knew what is superiority, what is inferiority. To a great extent, he knew, and he convinced these Brahmins. So how Buddha is superior than him? How Buddha is greater than this Kutadanta? That he could convince these, he could convince to these Brahmins who are invited from so far off places for this ceremony. So how he could convince? Well then, gentlemen, listen to why it's appropriate for me to go to see the ascetic Gautama, and it's not appropriate for him to come and meet me, come and see me. So no, what you said is wrong. It is appropriate for me to go and meet this with Lord Buddha. So how he defends? He is well born on both his father's and mother's side. He is of pure descent, irrefutable and impeccable in questions of ancestry back to the 7th paternal generation. For this reason, it's not appropriate for the ascetic Gautama to come to see me. Rather, it's appropriate for me to go to see him. In no way he is inferior to me. He is also well born. He is also have pure descent. He is also having a lot of pure lineage from his father's side and mother's side. So he is superior to me in this aspect also. Of course, they were stuck with this kind of wrong view. So, but still, this Kutadanta is defending. He is not inferior than me in his descent also, in his lineage also. When he went forth, he abandoned a large family circle. Giving up the entire family and family circle and to go forth is not an easy thing. I'm attached to my family. I'm attached to all my people. But he has given up all his family circle when he went forth, when he became a ascetic. So it is not an easy thing. So giving forth or going forth is not an easy thing. So in that way, he is superior to me. When he went forth, he abandoned abundant gold coin and bullion and stored in dungeons and towers. So he has given up. I'm accumulating all this wealth, but he has given up all this wealth. The person who has given up the wealth, he is more superior than the person who is accumulating the wealth. So when he has gone forth, when he went forth, so he had given up lot of his wealth, his gold coin, his bullion stored in the dungeons and towers, in the store. So lot of wealth he has given up. That is his superiority. So in that way, he is superior to me. So he is defending the superiority of Buddha and his decision to go and meet Buddha. Accumulation is not superiority. Giving and giving up is superiority. So to that extent, he was having this right view when compared to other people, this Kutadanta. He went forth from the lay life to homelessness, while still a youth, young, block-haired, blessed with youth in the prime of life. So becoming a renunciate, becoming an ascetic is not an easy thing when you are young. But this Gautama, Master Gautama, he has given up his home life, household life, and he became homeless when he was still very young. So that is also one superiority. That is also one superior quality of Gautama, Lord Buddha. So because of that superior quality, it is better for me to go and meet him rather than he coming to me and meet me. Though his mother and father wished otherwise, he shaved his hair and beard, dressed in saffron robes, ochre robes, and went forth from the lay life to homelessness. Though there was a lot of attachment from the parents, from the family, They were against this, but still with his determination, he could give up the lay life. So for that sake also, he is superior to me. So it is better for me to go and meet him. In that way, he is defending his decision to go and meet Lord Buddha. And then he is again appreciating the different qualities of Buddha, and he says, he is attractive, good-looking, lovely, of surpassing beauty. He is magnificent, splendid, and remarkable to behold. He is also very good in his demeanor, in his appearance. So he is good-looking. So that is one of the reasons why it is better for me to go and meet him. In that way, he is defending how he is superior, even in his appearance. He is ethical, possessing ethical conduct that is noble and skillful. With regard to ethical conduct also, morality also, he is more superior than me. He is more ethical than me. He is having very good ethical conduct. So better I go and meet him. He is good speaker with a polished, clear, and articulate voice that expresses the meaning. Not only me, he is also a superior speaker. He could speak well with a polished and superior and articulate voice. So it is better for me to go and meet him. He is also a teacher of teachers, not just me. I teach a band of people here, but he could teach even to the divine beings and the Brahma beings and the Maras. He is the teacher of the teachers. So it is definitely appropriate for me to go and meet him rather than he come and meet me. He has ended sensual desire and is rid of caprice. This is one more important thing. This is, to that extent, this Kutadanta is having right view. What he is saying, he is free from this lobha, this raga, dosa, moha. That is one of the best virtues. He is free from that. He is free from sensual desires, raga, and hatred, and also moha. So in that way, he is superior to me. So it is better for me to go and meet him. He teaches the efficacy of deeds and action. He does not wish any harm upon the community of any beings, Brahmins or the householders or even the evil people. He doesn't have any ill will. He doesn't wish any harm on anybody. And that is one more superior quality that he has understood in this Kutadanta. He talks about the efficacy of deeds and action. This law of karma he talks about. Good begets good, bad begets bad. So why should I simply hate people? Why should I simply disparage the people with wrong view? I am compassionate to them. I try to teach them. That kind of gentlemanliness he has, that kind of softness he has. He is not a hater of any community, any person, even the wicked people also he won't hate. The other people with wrong views he won't hate, whether they are theists or atheists, whether they are materialists or soul-centered people. Anybody, see, he won't hate them. He is such a gentleman. In that way, it is better for me to go and meet him rather than he coming to me and meeting is not a good idea. He went forth from an eminent family of unbroken aristocratic lineage. He went forth from a rich, affluent, and wealthy family. People come from distant lands and distant countries to question him. Many thousands of deities have gone for refuge, for life to him. So thousands of people, his affluence also, in all aspects, he is superior. He teaches the deities, the divine beings, and everyone. So in that way, he is more superior than me. He has this good reputation that the 9 qualities, Arahang, Samma, Sambuddho, Vidyacharana, Sampanno, all these things are very, very superior qualities. I don't possess any one of them. And he has the 32 marks of a great man. I have a few marks of a great man, but he has 32 qualities or marks of a great man. He is welcoming, congenial, polite, smiling, open, the first to speak. You see, so you can understand the great qualities. But though we are discussing the background of this sutra, we can understand what is superiority, what is inferiority, what are the virtues, what are the vices. So because of that reason, I'm going through the entire discourse. So here he is prizing how smiling, how gentle, and he is the first to speak. He is such humble person, though he was a supremely enlightened one. He is the one to wish you He is the first one to wish you. There is no need for you to go and wish. So he is such a humble and gentle person in that way. He is prizing the behavior, the etiquette, the attitude of Buddha, this Kutadanta. He is honored, respected, revered, venerated, and esteemed by the four assemblies. Four assemblies means like that time, different kinds of different classes, different of the people. All of them, they respect him. Many gods and humans are devoted to him. When he is residing in a village or town, non-human entities do not harass them. Even the non-human entities like the ghosts and other entities also will not harass him wherever he stays. That's what his superiority. He leads an order and a community and teaches a community and is said to be the best of the various religious founders. Among all religious founders, he is considered as the best. He did not come by his fame in the same ways as those other ascetics and Brahmins. Rather, he came by his fame due to his supreme knowledge and conduct. He has not taken any shortcuts to become successful and famous and popular. By his supreme knowledge and conduct, his practices and his supreme wisdom, he became so popular. In that way, he is superior to me. King Senya Bimbisara of Magadha and his wives and children have gone for refuge for life to the Astik Gautama. King Bimbisara, he only respects me, but Gautam Buddha, he is so superior. Because of that superiority, King Bimbisara has taken refuge in Buddha. He, in his family, his wives, everyone have taken refuge in Buddha. Taking refuge is actually more superior than simply the king respecting me. King Pasenadi of Kosala and his wives, the great wise people like Pokarasati and his wives and his children, and all these great people have taken refuge for life. The whole life we will become your disciples. In that way, they have taken refuge in Buddha, all these great people. So in that way, he is superior to me. He is honored, respected, and revered by everyone in the kingdom of Magadha, kingdom of this Kosala, and all great wise people, the Brahmins, the ascetics, everybody, all good people respect him. The Astik Gautama has arrived at Kanumata and is staying in Ambalatika. Any Astik or Brahmin who comes to stay in our village district is our guest and should be honored and respected as such. And the last final reason why I am going. So he is our guest. It is good for us to go and respect our guests rather than asking them to come and meet me. Better me going and respecting him is the best, say, behavior. That's how we should treat our guests. For this reason too, it is not appropriate for him to come and meet me. Rather, I should go and meet him because he is our guest. So going and meeting the guest is our culture. In that way, he defended his decision. This is the extent of Master Gautama's prize that I have learned, but his prizes are not confined to this. For the prize of Master Gautama is limitless. Though I have prized Master Gautama in so many ways, this is not enough. He is more praiseworthy. His qualities, his virtues, they are limitless. I can't explain all of them. He is such a great, wonderful personality. In that way, this Kutadanta, he prizes Master Gautama and he defends that his decision of going and meeting Buddha is appropriate, is the right decision. When he had spoken, those Brahmins said to him, according to Kutadanta's prizes, if Master Gautama was staying within 100 leagues, it would be worthwhile for a faithful gentleman to go and see him, even if he had to carry his own provisions in a shoulder bag. They were also convinced, such a great man, even though he is very far, 100 leagues means like say 1,000 kilometers, more than 1,000 kilometers he's away from us. But still it is better to go and meet such great men, such wise men, such enlightened men. Even carrying the provisions required for the in the journey. So it is better to go such a long distance also. If he is so close to us, then it is advisable for all of us to go and meet Lord Buddha. In that way, all of them, they were convinced. So well then, gentlemen, let's all go and see ascetic Gautama. In that way, this Kutadanta told his Brahmins and the ascetics and the lay people, and all of them, they started heading towards this Ambalitika way. this Lord Buddha was staying. Then Kutadanta, together with a large group of Brahmins and the householders, went to see the Buddha and exchanged greetings with him. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side. Before sitting down to one side, some of the Brahmins and householders of Kanumata bowed, some exchanged greetings and polite conversations, some held up their joined palms towards the Buddha, and some announced their name and clan while some kept silent. So in different ways, these people, they greeted Buddha. All of them, when they met Buddha, in different ways, they greeted Buddha and they sat to one side of Buddha. Then Kutadanta said to the Buddha, Master Gautama, I have heard that you know how to accomplish the sacrifice with 3 modes and 16 accessories. I don't know about that, but I wish to perform a great sacrifice. Please teach me how to accomplish the sacrifice with 3 modes and 16 accessories. That's what he wanted to learn from Buddha. That was his main intention. So he posed that question directly. He came to the business. He came to the main point, that what he wanted to discuss with Buddha. So I wanted to perform this great sacrifice. For that sake only, many people came from all over India, different provinces from India. So I heard that there are 3 modes of performing the animal sacrifice, and there are 16 ways, 16 supporting factors that I should look into. So please tell me, please teach me the 3 modes of performing the animal sacrifice and the 16 supporting factors that I should consider for performing the animal sacrifice. Please teach me that way. He requested Buddha. Well then, Brahmin, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. That way Buddha started speaking. Then this Kutadanta, he said, yes, sir. Then the Buddha started giving one incident that happened in the, very long back. One incident happened. He started quoting that incident. That's what is the beauty of Buddha's teaching. For some people, he had to narrate a situation, something like today's situation where the animal sacrifice is required. The same thing happened long back. During that time, what the wise people decided, that incident he started quoting. So directly, if he says, you do this, that will not be very impressive. So he started giving the reference of something like this that happened so long back. So that would definitely convince him. So thinking so, Buddha has given one incident that happened, which is similar to the present situation, so that it is easy to convince this Kutadanta. So what Buddha said, once upon a time, Brahmin, there was a king named Mahavijita. He was very rich, affluent and wealthy, with lots of gold and silver, lots of property and assets, lots of money and grain, and a full treasury and storehouse. Then as King Mahavijita was in private retreat, this thought came to his mind, I have achieved human wealth and reign after conquering this vast territory. Why don't I hold a large sacrifice that will be for my lasting welfare and happiness? So he too had this view that now I have everything. That King Mahavijita, he started giving the story of, narrating the story of Mahavijita. Lord Buddha started giving this story, narrating the story of Mahavijita. He was a great king with a lot of success. He was having a large territory, a lot of wealth. He was very much satisfied with his worldly possessions. And he was thinking of the glory, the same glory in the future also, after death also. For that, giving sacrifice is the ideal thing. That's what the people were thinking. That was the view. If you give sacrifice, animal sacrifice, then in the future lives, you will become a king and you will have the same glory. Because of that reason, many kings, they used to go for this animal sacrifices. Same thought this king had, and he was looking for this kind of animal sacrifice to be performed so that he will achieve the lasting welfare and happiness. Then he summoned the Brahmin, high priest, and said to him, just now, Brahmin, as I was in private retreat, this thought came to my mind. I have achieved human wealth and reign after conquering this vast territory. Why don't I perform a great sacrifice that will be for my lasting welfare and happiness? Brahmin, I wish to perform a great sacrifice. Please instruct me. It will be for my lasting welfare and happiness. So he requested his chaplain, his spiritual advisor, the religious advisor. So I want to perform a sacrifice, great sacrifice, which will give me the long-lasting happiness and welfare. So now why don't you give me some advice of how to make this great sacrifice? But that advisor is not an ordinary advisor. You will come to know who is he. So then what suggestion he gave to this king? The Brahmin high priest said to him, "Sir, the king's realm is harried and oppressed. Bandits have been seen raiding villages, towns, and cities and infesting the highways. But if the king were to extract more taxes while his realm is thus harried and oppressed, he would not be doing his duty. If you want to perform great sacrifice, then you have to extract a lot of taxes from the people. Then at this juncture, a lot of problems are going on in the kingdom. Many bandits, many thieves, many robbers, they are attacking the villages, they're looting, they're infesting the highways. So now people are in distress. This is not the right time to say levy more taxes. So that way he is discouraging this king to go for, in his planning to go for this animal sacrifice. Now the king might think, I will eradicate this outlaw threat by execution or imprisonment or confiscation or condemnation or banishment. But that's not the right way to eradicate this barbarian obstacle. Those who remain after the killing will return to harass the king's realm. You may be thinking that I can kill these bandits, I can harass them, I can confiscate them, and I can banish them. All these ideas you may be getting, but it's like one movement kind of thing. Many people are not happy with the king's rule, and many people, they turn against you. And those who are escaped from your banishment, from your imprisonment, they may come back to you and they may kill you, they may harass you. Something like this happened in Thailand, maybe in the mid 20th century. There, the communist movement, it became little active in the northeastern parts of Thailand. That time, many communists, they became rebels against the king. And they started looting and they started creating problem for the king and even for the common people. Then the king, he asked a suggestion of one of the monks there, one of the advisors. And the monk told him, instead of attacking and killing these say the communist movement people, you better help them in different ways, and that they were what they were looking for, and then automatically that movement will go away and they will become prosperous. The same thing here Buddha is explaining. The same ideas also you can see here. And this is what is a democratic way of ruling a country. So in that way, the true democracy started in Buddhist time. That's what many people say, even the historians say. Even in Buddha's Sangha and even in Buddha's attitude and his teachings also, we can see how he encouraged democracy instead of, say, following some kind of autocratic system of subduing the people and their aspirations. How to take care of the welfare of the people and the community. So here, if you go for that kind of aggressive steps of condemning or imprison and say banishing the people, that is not a good idea. Rather, here is a plan relying on which the outlaw threat will be properly uprooted. This kind of outlaw, if you want to remove, if you want to uproot, there is a plan. In that way, this minister or this religious advisor, he is say suggesting this Mahavijita king. Actually, in that life, Mahavijita was actually Buddha's the present, or Buddha's chief, one of the disciples, Ananda, and Buddha himself was that religious advisor. So Buddha, with his wisdom during that time also, he could promote welfare of the king and his kingdom. So now that religious advisor, who was Bodhisattva, the Buddha at that time, so he is suggesting this Mahavijita, let the king provide seed and fodder for those in the realm who work in farming and raising cattle, Let the king provide funding for those who work in trade. Let the king guarantee food and wages for those in government service. You take care of their welfare, their requirements. If they are fully taken care of and their requirements are met, then why they become rebels? Why they become, say, Naxalites or rebels? So you just take care of their requirements. If you start squeezing and if you start using some aggressive means to curb them, then it will become a bigger movement and it will become a bigger problem. You just take care of them, whatever they want. For the farmers, give them seed and other requirements for farming. For the businessmen, for the traders, you give whatever they want, you support their business. For the government servants, you give whatever they want, good wages and all. Then automatically, all of them, those who are involved in this rebel movement, they will follow the rules of the land, and they will be happy and you too will be happy. The same thing happened in Thailand in the mid 20th century or maybe 1960s or 70s, during that time. And automatically that movement stopped. It became a prosperous, it became a peaceful place, northeast of Thailand. So it's because of the wise advice of these great masters. The same thing happened here. Then the people occupied with their own work will not harass the realm. When they're busy in their own work, then how come they will become rebels? How come they will become the bandits or killers? The king's revenues will be great. When the country is secured as a sanctuary, free of being harried or oppressed, the happy people with joy in their hearts, dancing with children at their breast, will dwell as if their houses were wide open. The king agreed with the high priest's advice and followed the recommendation. So instead of going for animal sacrifice, you sacrifice your, say, your wealth for the sake of people, and by that you will get more wealth. You will get more happiness. You will get more security, more appreciation, more name and fame. That is the best way of sacrifice. Instead of going for this animal sacrifice, in that way, this religious advisor, the Bodhisattva, he advised this Mahavijita king. Then the king summoned the Brahmin high priest and said to him, I have eradicated the outlaw threat. So according to that, he followed the recommendation and everything became all right. And he told this advisor, the Bodhisattva, whatever you said, I followed. Now it is a wonderful idea and it worked. And relying on your plan, my revenue is now great. So I relied on your plan and it worked and I am getting more revenue. Since the country is secured as a sanctuary, free of being harried and oppressed, the people happy, the happy people with joy in their hearts, dancing with their children at their breast, dwell as if their houses were wide open. Brahmin, I wish to perform a great sacrifice. Please instruct me. It will be for my lasting welfare and happiness. Now I have more revenue, more happiness, more respect. The people are also very happy. Now tell me how to perform this great sacrifice. Again, he was insisting on the sacrifice, animal sacrifice. Then this wise advisor, Bodhisattva, what he advised him, in that case, let the king announce this throughout the realm to the aristocrat, vassals, ministers and councillors, well-to-do Brahmins and well-off householders, both of town and country. I wish to perform a great sacrifice. Please grant your approval, gentlemen. It will be for my lasting welfare and happiness. Now you take the permission, you take the approval. So you see again a democratic idea. Say curbing or subduing the rebels in a more intelligent, in a more democratic way. That is the first step. The second step is when you want to perform a sacrifice or a great ceremony, you should take the approval of all the big people or the wise people or the influential people or the representatives of people in your kingdom. So invite all of them, tell them about your plan. Don't take one individual decision, because you are the ruler who represent these different people. You take their suggestion, you take their approval, you take their consent. Then you go for this kind of sacrifice. See the beautiful suggestions given by Bodhisattva to this king. So in that way, all Bodhisattva's ideas, they are not autocratic ideas. They are not extreme ideas. Even in rule also, even in ruling a kingdom also, one should follow this middle path approach. This kind of, say, not taking the extreme approaches of this autocracy or too lax approaches, too unmindful approaches are not good. the middle path approaches of how to take everyone into confidence. That kind of approaches, that kind of techniques, that kind of plans, ideas are given by this Bodhisattva to this great king Mahavijita. The king agreed to the high priest's advice and followed his recommendation. And all of the people who were thus informed responded by saying, "May the king perform a sacrifice. It is time for a sacrifice, great king." And so these four consenting factions became accessories to the sacrifice. King Mahavijita possessed 8 factors. He was well born on both his mother's and father's side, of pure descent. He was very good lineage. He was attractive, good looking. He was rich, affluent. He was powerful, having an army of 4 divisions. He was faithful, generous, and a donor. His doors always open. He was very learned in diverse fields of learning. He was astute, competent, and intelligent. Because of these 8 factors, you are suitable to perform this great sacrifice. In that way, all his vassals, all his aristocratic vassals, all his the representatives, they agreed for his proposal. Then the Brahmin high priest had 4 factors. Even your counselor or your religious advisor, that is our Mahabodhisattva. Bodhisattva is also having a lot of very good factors. Because of such kind of religious teacher, and also the king has 8 factors, all these things are congenial to perform this great sacrifice. In that way, you go ahead. So these other representatives also, they give permission to this king. And also the 3 modes of performing this. I shall lose a great fortune. I am losing a great fortune. I have lost a great fortune. So you should not think about I'm going to lose by performing this sacrifice. I lose a lot of wealth. So now I am losing a lot of faith. So after sacrifice, you should not repent that I lost a lot of faith. So with free mind, complete confident mind, you should perform this sacrifice. In that way, if you perform the sacrifice, the 3 modes of performing a sacrifice, that condition will be fulfilled. So in that way, so these aristocrats, he gave permission, they approved this king's performing of the great sacrifice. So in all aspects, this king was suitable. So when they brought a lot of gifts and a lot of money to support the king to perform this sacrifice, then the king rejected this. So when the king rejected this, then they thought of bringing all these gifts and wealth in the 4 corners of this sacrificial place. And there, because of this great wealth, then he could do a superior sacrifice. But is there any other sacrifice that has fewer requirements and undertakings, yet is more fruitful and beneficial? In that way, they were requesting, the king requested this spiritual advisor, this Bodhisattva. Then Bodhisattva said, instead of killing the animals, already you got a lot of wealth from the common public, because now they are happy, now they are into their work, seriously they are into their work. All these representatives of the people, the aristocrats and the representatives of the people, they are happy with your, say, by your considering their approval also, they are happy, and they are also giving a lot of gifts. Then what else you require? So now there is no need to kill the animals. Rather, so this religious advisor, he started giving advice on generosity, advice on morality, advice on meditation, all these things he starts giving advice, and then he stops that killing of animals, because there are so many other ways of sacrificing which will give greater happiness, greater say satisfaction for everyone, not only for the king, for his people, for the representatives of the people, for everyone. There is a different means of getting happiness. So it's a very long discourse. So I have summarized this. So, and then again, what is a great sacrifice? How to progress in the spiritual life by practicing meditation and the different stages of meditation, how to get stream entry, how to become arahant. Everything is explained to this Kutadanta also. By quoting the story of Mahavijita, Lord Buddha explains the different stages of liberating the mind, and that is the biggest sacrifice. Following the meritorious actions, practicing the parmis, and taking the approval of all the people, looking into the welfare of all the people who are dependent on you, by practicing morality, by practicing generosity, by practicing other meritorious actions like apachayana, vayavacha. All these things he started teaching the right view, the different aspects of right view, how not to avoid the extreme views, how to stick on to the non-violence, how to stick on to the truth. All these things he started explaining to Kutadanta, and Kutadanta became the lifetime disciple of Buddha. So that's what is this Kutadanta, and he decided not to go for this animal sacrifice by killing unnecessarily a lot of animals and cutting a lot of trees. All these things will lead to imbalance in the nature, and that will in no way will help anybody, whether the performer of the sacrifice or the people who are involved in that sacrifice or the deities. Nobody will be happy with this wrong view action. So in that way, Buddha could convince this Kutadanta. Kutadanta became very happy, and all the people who are listening to this Buddha's discourse on what is the true sacrifice. The true sacrifice is your selfishness. If you sacrifice your selfishness, that will become the true sacrifice instead of sacrificing the animals. That is the bottom line of this discourse. Sacrifice your selfishness, sacrifice your ignorance, sacrifice your attachment and greed, sacrifice your hatred and ill will. Then that will be a superior sacrifice rather than sacrificing and killing the animals. That is what is the summary on the bottom line of this Kutadanta discourse, the discourse to Kutadanta. By listening to this, many people, they got the right view. So this is also one right aspect, the true aspect of right view. What to sacrifice, from which one has to be free. Sometime back, freedom from what? That's what I was telling. So instead of struggling for freedom from so many other secondary issues, one should work for freedom from one's own defilements. In the same way, sacrificing so many other things in the name of happiness and welfare of myself and the welfare of my people, my dependents, it is better to sacrifice one's own selfishness, one's own attachment, one's own greed. That will be a superior sacrifice. In that way, Buddha could convince this Kutadanta, and he could stop the animal sacrifice that was planned by this Kutadanta. That is about the true sacrifice. That is about the way of living, sustainable living, and for happy living, sacrificing one's own defilements again is the key. Freedom from one's own defilements is the right freedom. In the same way, sacrificing one's own defilements is the key to success, key to happiness. That is the say moral, or that is the learning from this discourse. I think this much is enough. Now we'll see one or two questions, then we'll conclude. So I'm also bringing in this aspect of right view in all our discourses, all the chantings, because as I used to say, it is the right view that is your savior. If you want to save yourself, there is no other shortcut other than learning, practicing, promoting right view. There is no other shortcut. If you can understand and appreciate this, then our work and our mission will become successful, and and definitely it will help you not only now in this life, even in the future lives also. It will help you and protect you. That's what I can assure you. So with this assurance and with this message, we will take up your questions. Vandami Bante, you beautifully explained Kutadanta Sutta. By observing Panchashil, can we imbibe principles in Kutadanta Sutta in our day-to-day? Yeah, of course. Shila is a parmi, perfection. Shila is a punya kriya. It's a meritorious action. In Shila, if you understand Shila correctly and practice Shila, Pancha Shila or 6 Shila or 8 Shila, whatever it is, if you practice Shila correctly understanding it, yes, there is no need to kill, because killing only increase my defilements. It will increase my greed, it will increase my ignorance, it will increase my hatred. In no way it helps me. The same way stealing will increase my greed, increase my ignorance, increase my hatred. So this kind of understanding, if you get, then definitely will not involve in killing or stealing or sexual misconduct or lying or taking intoxicants. So any aspect, any parmi, any perfection, any meritorious action, if you thoroughly understand, then you will get a lot of insights and you will establish yourself in the right view. So Panchashila also, Shila also will give you a lot of insights and it will help you to establish in right view. And then you can understand the discourses like Kutadanta discourse or so many other discourses where people were obsessed with sacrifice, obsessed with killing. Even today, that is very unfortunate. I've seen here in some countries, many countries, everywhere, in all countries, even in Buddhist countries also, people are obsessed with killing, maybe because of their greed for taste or greed for sensuality. People are obsessed with killing. So that killing will never help us. So understanding the 5 precepts definitely will help us to understand and establish in right view. And that will definitely help us to understand the scriptures, understand the sutras like this Kutadanta Sutra, and to apply them in our day-to-day life also.
Thank you, Bante.
Sadhu, sadhu. So please understand, everything finally boils down to our own defilements only. Whatever actions we perform, they should not multiply our greed, they should not increase our hatred or delusion. The actions, whatever we do, it should reduce our greed, hatred, and delusion. That aspect always we should look into. Then it will become the right view. Right view involves this crucial aspect. So whatever we speak, whatever we think, whatever we do, it should reduce our defilements like our greed, our hatred, and our delusion. Then you can authoritatively say that you have right view. Then you are practicing right view, you are understanding right view, you are establishing in right view. So that kind of understanding, if you get, then whatever we are doing is successful and your life definitely becomes a happy, healthier, and peaceful life. Okay, if you don't have any questions, so we'll conclude. Yes.
Banteji, we know that we need to remove defilements and we need to remove our selfishness. We are aware about it, but what is the proper procedure? Like, should we have to dissect? What is the actual procedure of dissection of this and actually following a procedure, and how actually we should do it, Banteji? Even when I sit for meditation, I really do not know the procedure. Should I focus on my actions or the selfishness
The
itself?
different ways and means that I'm explaining and asking you to practice, the different meditation techniques, the different practice sessions, the different Dhamma talks, the different aspects like Dana, Shila, Apachayana, Dhamma Desana, Dhamma Savana, Vayavacha, all these things are the different aspects of the procedure that you have to follow to develop, to cultivate this kind of mind, which is free from the greed, which will become free from greed, hatred, and delusion. Step by step, bit by bit, this is the way. The hundreds of tips, hundreds of techniques, hundreds of say suggestions are being given in all these programs that we are conducting, whether it is practice sessions or courses or Dhamma talks or the puja programs, chanting programs, protective chants, Punyanavadana programs, all these things where we are conducting, they are giving you not just one aspect, not just one technique or one tip for the procedure that you have to build your mind. We're getting hundreds of tips and techniques. Understand each one of them, or try to understand each one of them, how it reduces your greed, how it reduces your hatred. And that's how we are progressing in this right way. So why this kind of doubt? Why this kind of ambiguity in the mind? So whatever we are doing, the different programs, to a great extent, it will help you to understand right view, to develop right view, to purify your mind, to free your mind from this greed, hatred, and delusion. Don't have this kind of doubts or ambiguities. So just completely involve and see how these different programs and techniques are helping you to reduce your defilements. So many people, they say, no, after practicing this metta meditation, I'm free from a lot of anger. After practicing some Shila, I'm becoming free from even greed, hatred, and delusion. After practicing generosity, dana, a lot of satisfaction I'm getting, a lot of selflessness. That kind of selflessness gives me satisfaction. By respecting the respectables, by listening the Dhamma, I'm getting the different ideas, different dimensions of my mind is opening up to get the real happiness, to be free from my attachments, my greed, my hatred, my delusion. So all these things are the ways, all these things are the different aspects of the procedure that you are being followed, you're being following, which are purifying your mind, which are taking you to right view, which are cleansing your mind, which are removing your defilements like greed, hatred, and delusion. Okay. Next question.
Vandami Banteji.
Yeah, Guruji, good morning, Guruji. This is Madhu.
Yes, Madhu.
Guruji, we talked about this offering animals part. Sacrificing animals. Yes, this is happening in India also in most of the villages. In fact, I have experienced about a week back in my village itself. Somebody was offering a goat. Especially since it happens in villages, when we come across these kind of situations, how do we immediately enlighten them so that we will be able to arrest them from doing so? Is there a way that you suggest, Guru?
We should be careful. So we should not immediately try to enlighten them. Otherwise, they will sacrifice us also. We should be careful. Immediately trying to enlighten them, we will bring the problem on our head.
True, Guru. Yes.
Difficult. People who are stuck with a lot of wrong views, it is difficult to teach them. It's difficult to tell them that this will no way it will help, because here in both these situations that I've explained in this today's discourse, the teacher also very wise. The person who was requesting about animal sacrifice, the disciple also very wise. Mahavijita, he was also very, very wise. And his teacher, Bodhisattva, our own Buddha in his previous life, he was also very wise. So both of them are very wise. They could understand that, oh, killing is not good, animal sacrifice is not good. There are better kinds of sacrifice. They could understand. Here, Kutadanta also wise and Buddha also wise. So Kutadanta could understand Buddha. So killing is not good. But in this situation, it's very difficult. Even the person who is teaching, if he is wise, but if the listener is not up to that mark, his intellectual levels, his wisdom levels are not high, then it will not work. Once that wise teacher should assess the listener's abilities also.
Yes.
If he is of that mark, if that ability, whether I can teach him, whether I can change his, say, thinking, That kind of assessment, if you can do, then maybe you can slowly teach them. Otherwise, if it is risky, if it is dangerous, then better take the help of other masters who are more superior and who can work with such people. And if you don't get such masters, then better to keep quiet and better let go. Because see, so every one of us, we have our own limitations, right? We are not Buddhas. Even Buddhas also, they see the ability, the capability, the caliber of the listener, the caliber of the person who can listen to Buddha. In that way, the world has its own limitations. The people's minds, including the mind of Buddha, has its own limitations. So if you think that the people, if they are your friends, or if you know them, or if they are little good people who can understand what you're saying, then it is better to tell them about the dangers in killing and how it is futile exercise and it is dangerous thing to kill the animals. So in the name of pleasing the deities. So all these things, because a lot of wrong views they would have imbibed, that deity will be pleased and by killing this. So when you say something which is completely against that, then they may become furious. So that kind of tactfulness, that kind of skillfulness, mindfulness, that ability to gauge the other's mind, all these things are required before we convince other person about what is right view, what is wrong view. And also we should look into some other ways and means of how to help such person by bringing in other people who are suitable to teach them. Sometimes our own people, they won't listen to us. Our own family members, they don't listen to us. Is it not? Then how come these people with lot of rigid views, they can listen to us? Whether some other people will have some influence on my family member or this person, whether if he teaches, whether it will work, all those things we should look into. Or then step by step, initially saying a little bit about morality, then telling about other aspects of mind cultivation, little bit of meditation. In that way, slowly, if you can bring them into this right view, then convincing them about not to sacrifice, it may work. That way, one should look into so many ways and means, skillful ways and means to convince people. Okay. Yes, Super.
Bante ji, to cultivate this right view, see, depends upon the surroundings and environment outside, nearby us, or so how to handle that situation.
A lot of wrong views, the people with a lot of wrong views will influence us, because now our environment is full of wrong views. The whole world, rather, it's full of wrong views. Even in India, even in many Buddhist countries also, there are so many wrong views. Buddhism also, the pure form of Buddhism is also very rare to see in the present world. Pure form means the Buddhism with right view. The right view aspects of Buddhism also, they're corrupted in many places. So in the midst of that, as I used to tell you, so though very few people are there who are into this path of right view, one has to be in touch with them as much as possible. Otherwise, one has to be little silent and little secluded, and keep away the wrong view people as much as possible. Of course, now little bit of scriptures, and they'll also help us to understand the right view and to keep our mind in the track of right view. Here in our organization, yesterday and day before yesterday, I saw our many coordinators, volunteers. They were talking so beautifully, and I'm very happy the way they are establishing themselves in right view. That way, if this becomes little more and more, say, bigger, this movement, then you will get maybe more number of right view people. And being in association with this kind of coordinators, volunteers, meditators in this path, more often, that will also help you to be in the right view. As I was telling you some time back, if you are so much infested with the wrong view people, Try to learn how to be alone also, how to be meditative, how to practice individually the meditation, how to go through the scriptures with more interest, with more connect, how to maybe you can learn Pali and learn to read the scriptures, the original scriptures. The original scriptures also will give you a lot of right view. There's so many other recent commentaries they're not giving a lot of emphasis on the right view. They are talking about so many other other aspects of Buddhism which are not really required. They will again make us fanatic. So if you want to dig into this kind of right view, you should go through the original scriptures. To read original scriptures, of course, now there are translations in English. You can go through the scriptures in English. And if you learn Pali, then if you can go through the scriptures in its original language, it gives you much more interest. It gives you much more, insights into right view. That way, if you make up your mind, establishing in right view is possible. It's not a very, very big task. Those who are having time, like the retired people and all, we are from educated retired people, they can do so many things. They can learn Pali, go through the scriptures in Pali language, or they can go through the scriptures in English. So many scriptures. You can spend a lot of time. And if you go through the scriptures, then be in this path also, this Center for Right View Meditations. There are so many activities here, the translations, translation committees, practice sessions, classes, Dhamma talks, or Dhamma programs in the house, like Punyanamodana programs, Paritta chanting programs. If you are involved in all these things, automatically establish in right view. Again and again, your mind is bombarded with right view, then automatically establish right. Again and again, if your mind is bombarded with wrong view people, wrong views, then you will be carried away by the wrong view people. It's like repetition, where you are exposed repeatedly, that will decide your view. If you're repeatedly exposed to right view, you will establish in right view. If you're repeatedly exposed to wrong view, then you will be established in wrong view. Just see how you can be repeatedly exposed to right view in different ways, like I have mentioned now. Then definitely you will stick on to the right view and you will get deep insights of right view.
Thank you, Banteji. Thank you, Vandami Banteji. Thank you, Banteji.
Okay, so we'll conclude with one small chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalam rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada swati bhavantu te sukhi bhaveyan nidduko ahang nicca ahang viya Hidacha me sukhi hontu majjata chatavedino imam hi gammante dham satta hontu sukhi sada tato paranchara jesu chakkavale sujantano sadhu 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 sukhi hontu mangal.
Thank you, Banteji.
Thank you so much, Banteji.
Vandami Banteji.
Thank you very much.